Do you remember where you were 35 years ago today when the biggest concert event ever took place on two separate continents? Let's talk about it coming up. Hi, welcome back to Classic Guitar Rock. I'm Jeremy. Take just a minute, click that subscribe button. Can you believe it's already been 35 years since Live Aid happened? July 13th, 1985. Now, for those of you that weren't old enough to remember, it was a big deal, big concert, broadcast live on MTV, I think on several other networks also. And it was the brainchild of Bob Geldof, who was really kind of a minor musical figure. He was in a group called Boomtown Rats, who had one minor hit in the early 80s. But he had really gotten into charitable work and had done a lot of great things. And in 1985, he was inspired to raise money for starving people in Africa. It actually started in 84. Feed the World, that song that we hear every Christmas time, that came out in Christmas of 1984. And that was the first little activity that came as part of that Feed the World campaign. Or USA for Africa was a different thing that came later. But his Feed the World campaign started with that Christmas song. And then later that summer, he had an idea to do a massive concert, two massive concerts actually, one in England and one in Philadelphia. And it brought together many of the biggest bands, many of the most popular artists from all kinds of genres, brought them all together for this one big event. So the performers involved included many of the big names at the time. You'll recognize many of these names, and many of them are names you maybe have never heard of, and they definitely aren't really around anymore. But at the Wembley show in London, we had Adam Ant, we had Boomtown Rats, which was Bob Geldof's group, David Bowie, Phil Collins, Elvis Costello, Dire Straits, Brian Ferry, David Gilmour, Elton John, Howard Jones, Paul McCartney. You see the whole list, okay? A lot of folks. This is a very British heavy concert, by the way, not only in England, but even in the US. Probably half the groups in the US were British, maybe more. In the US, we had Bryan Adams, we had Black Sabbath, we had the Cars, Hall & Oates, Judas Priest, Tears for Fears, Thompson Twins, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. They don't mention a little band here called Led Zeppelin who appeared. Yep, they were there. Robert Plant, you notice, is here, but they don't mention Led Zeppelin. That kind of came together last minute. Black Sabbath actually came together last minute. And if you see some of these earlier posters, they don't mention Black Sabbath. There were other artists that aren't on the list. Billy Ocean was there. I remember that. So a lot of artists took part here. But as I mentioned, Led Zeppelin was there, and this is a notorious performance. In fact, many folks call it a debacle and say it was terrible. I watched it at the time. I didn't think it was terrible. I remember just being excited to see Led Zeppelin play again. It wasn't the best, but I wouldn't call it terrible. But over the years, people have really panned this as like a terrible performance. Really wasn't that bad. They had, now this is interesting, they had Phil Collins playing drums for them in Philadelphia. And if you notice, Phil Collins also performed in England. That's right. That was kind of one of the little side PR things going on with Live Aid, was Phil Collins was going to play on both continents. So early in the day, he played in England, and then he flew over, and throughout the day, they'd show updates of where's Phil Collins. He's rushing to the airport. He's in the air. And finally, he was there to play with Led Zeppelin. And I believe he played a set of his own also. I can't remember. But Phil Collins was a very busy guy that day. You know, over the years, just like happens all the time, I think some of our memories are replaced, or what actually happened is replaced by our memories. That's what I'm trying to say. And I think we tend to think back and think it was this wonderful event. And for sure, it was a great cause that they were working towards, and that was awesome. But when you actually go back and look at a lot of the footage, the performances really weren't that great. The Cars, one of my favorites, they were okay. They didn't do great. Led Zeppelin, we already talked about. Was it terrible? No, I don't think it was terrible. But was it great? No. Judas Priest, they were okay. They played everything way too fast. I mean, a lot of it was okay. Black Sabbath, they were okay. No one was stellar. However, if you had to pick a grand champion, who was the best of the entire show, you'd have to go with Queen. Queen did a great job. And in fact, I hear the story was that Freddie Mercury was approaching this like a competition. He's like, okay, we're in this concert with pretty much every other big band name of the day. And we're going to win. And they did. I mean, they pulled off a phenomenal show. Freddie Mercury was awesome. This was kind of Freddie Mercury at the pinnacle in front of hundreds of thousands of people there in person. Plus, it's being broadcast live to millions of people. And it's fun to go onto YouTube. There's plenty of video footage out there of the performances. Go check out Led Zeppelin. Decide for yourself, was it really that bad? Check out Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, the Cars, whoever you want to check out. David Gilmour, Dire Straits. Check them out, see what you think. Again, performance-wise, was it the best concert? Probably not. But imagine the logistics of having this many bands play. You got to televise it, so you got to think about how that's breaks, television breaks, and all of these different things. It was neat. It was a neat day, a worthy cause. In terms of great concert performance, probably not the best, but it was cool. And so looking back, I have fond memories of watching Live Aid, spending basically that whole day watching MTV and watching the various artists, some that you liked, some that you didn't. And you notice a lot of these names on here, like, oh gosh, Style Council. Okay, where are they now? There's just so many of these bands like this. And what a mixture. I mean, we had Joan Baez and Black Sabbath on the same bill. I mean, that doesn't happen much anymore. And we had like the Temptations. I mean, we had multiple generations going on, multiple genres. Again, it leaned a little heavy on the British side, which is okay. I mean, Geldof's a Brit, and I'm sure that's where he was focusing a lot of his attention. But all for a great cause and a fun day. But again, not the pinnacle of live performance, but still a great accomplishment. And I would say this, Live Aid sounded much better than Woodstock. Just going to throw that out there. What do you think? Hey, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, take a minute and do so, and we'll see you on the next Classic Guitar Rock. Bye-bye.